Looking back on the Yakuza series is an exercise in frustration. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good games there, it's just that you have to then acknowledge the recent games, which is no fun. Infinite Wealth is especially infuriating because of the way it refuses to look back on its own series with any degree of reverence or discernment for what would be good to reference, what would be good to follow up on, what would be good to just leave be, you know? So much of this game is dedicated to making the rest of the games worse by proxy, just because it demands that the entire series be made into a vessel with which it can sell more copies of itself. It's not just the 9th mainline game, it's the one with all the callbacks! Except for that was also 4, and 6, and 7, weirdly enough. Buy the game now and see if they make the reference you want! That said, this isn't a video about my frustrations with Infinite Wealth. I don't want to go down that road of talking about the game's narrative in earnest. I don't have it in me, and I don't want to. Instead, I'd like to redirect this negativity into something nobody would have expected. Because if you're subscribed to me, you most likely saw that tier list video, and you most likely heard some of my opinions on Yakuza 7. And that was just the spark notes. Well, I appear before you today to announce that I don't hate everything about that game. Maybe I did at one point, but not anymore. In fact, since Infinite Wealth has had some time to sit with me, I've come to realize that it illuminates some parts of Yakuza 7 I wouldn't have otherwise seen. Things that might be obvious to you, the person who presumably likes Yakuza 7. But for me, this was a revelation. So I'd like to go over some of those things here, if for no other reason than because it's just so fun to be positive. Probably the easiest thing to say Yakuza 7 did better than Infinite Wealth is visual presentation. I think I've made it very clear that the Dragon Engine as it exists currently is a very ugly thing, and that's almost entirely due to Infinite Wealth's changes. The super saturated lighting that always has this gross purple tinge to it, the new weird skin textures on every character that makes them look sort of shiny, and especially the newly added constant barrage of shiny skin tags all over the ground. This one especially grinds my gears. Why would you drag my attention away from this new giant city to make me stare at the ground everywhere I go? Again, even if you're not grabbing them, they're still there in all their sparkling, distracting glory. In stark contrast, I honestly really like the way Yakuza 7 looks. I mean, it's not Yakuza 6, but nothing is Yakuza 6, let's be real. The relatively soft coloring on most of the environment really makes your party stand out as this little splash of life in a world that's trying to keep you down. It also gives Yokohama a very solid visual identity, especially compared to Kamurocho and Sotenbori. I don't know, people have spoken harshly of the blue haze, but it's nothing compared to what would come, and especially with what we'd just gotten in Kiwami 2. Hell, even with Judgment, I really don't like the overwhelming orange lighting in that game. I much prefer how it looks in the remaster. Blue is just a really nice color, and it's one that isn't absurd to see in real life. Not that these games have to or even should be trying to emulate how the real world looks. I'd much prefer if they went in a more stylized direction that actually looked good, but still, blue is cool. The character models too, I have very few negative things to say about. I like how people look in this game. Skin has a reasonable level of reflectiveness and luminosity to it. People don't glow, they don't have a gross sheen covering them. The facial animations also look really good here. I've always liked the way people emote in this game. I don't know if I'd say Infinite Wealth is necessarily a downgrade in that department, but it's something I grew to further appreciate here regardless. Talking of animations, another thing that Infinite Wealth really dropped the ball on was its action sequences. Whether they be dynamic intros, segments during battle, or just Kiwami moves, I think that they all look bad. It's a change that's existed since the Kaito files, but at least that game and Gaiden had an excuse for it. And even with Gaiden, there's still some sequences that manage to look good regardless of the drop in animation quality. Some really creative camera work can make up for a lot. With Infinite Wealth, not only is the camera often way too static to make these sequences look less terrible, it really does its best to show off the worst parts of these animations. Characters move like action figures in a really weightless and exaggerated way. They don't look human, and when they do look human, it looks like really stilted choreography done by first-timers on the soundstage. With Yakuza 7, there's still some sequences that I think look lame, but that mostly just comes down to bad choreography. A choice few come to mind that some people seem to love, but I've never gotten to hype. Where 7 really shines is in its Kiwami moves. Moves have a heft to them. It looks like they take effort to perform by all parties, and the enemy always looks like he was just hit with a metal baseball bat to the chin, or a flurry of kicks, or a big-ass ladder. In Infinite Wealth, most of these moves have that weightless feeling I've just mentioned, and if they're not that, then they're really bland, fantastical bullshit. Most of them are the latter, unfortunately. That missing groundedness with the semi-realistic moves, which 7 still has, helps to better sell the fantastical shit, like Nanba's Kiwami moves, or some of the more out-there stuff with the optional jobs. I think the best example I can show is the difference in essence of friendship, or whatever the hell it's called. I love that in 7, since it only works on one enemy, the party gets to be much more involved. An enemy bouncing between members, all getting their own moment to shine with the attack, is so much better than everyone jumping into the air, floating, and doing some bizarre move that doesn't even suit them. Why does Adachi do a homing attack? And no, a reference with his voice actor or something like that isn't a good reason. Why is this character, a man who's over 60 years old and whose whole shtick is being a brute of an ex-cop, doing a homing attack? I get it, it's flashier than a big punch, but at least the latter actually makes sense for him to do. And hey, ending the attack with Ichiban doing one of the few upward-facing dropkicks in the series is way cooler than the lamest, stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Hey guys, do you remember Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions? Do you now? How about now? We seem to be moving in a negative direction, my friends, so let's double back to what I just mentioned before. Jobs. The job system in Yakuza 7 is something I've always been pretty impressed by. Not in a mechanical sense, it's a staple in RPGs at this point, but rather in how it was able to blend itself into the world. They're literal jobs, professions, things that each party member could conceivably do, and don't break immersion too much when you're using them in battle. Foreman, host, chef, hostess, dealer, these are all things one could imagine doing as a pretty standard job, especially when you're on the lower rungs of the social ladder and need to look more towards nightlife for higher ability. Some jobs are a little more fantastical, but still imaginable as a profession. Breaker, musician, fortune teller, idol, night queen, things your average person wouldn't be able to do and make money off of, and certainly not something you would go to a Hello Work to sign up for, but things that could feasibly be jobs nonetheless. And the base jobs all still work for what they are. Hell, they don't even need to, since they're what you start with before getting a proper job, so they naturally make sense for each character to have. After finishing the game, I was super curious where jobs would go in an RPG sequel. Me personally, since I'm something of a disgusting fucking cretin who plays Moira and Cloak and Dagger, I was hoping for some support classes to get introduced. You know, I love playing as a big chunky damage dealer as much as the next guy, but in Yakuza 7 I was basically playing as 3 big chunky damage dealers and a healer sometimes. I equally love the chance to forego all offensive capabilities in order to better aid my companions in doing that big boy damage. So what sorts of jobs could there be? Probably inside jobs for what I would want. Writer, architect, painter. I know we already got a secretary type of thing with Eri, but again, she was just a damage dealer. I'd like seeing her class reworked into something that's better at actually supporting the party. Maybe just make her flower move not randomly fail, that would be a good start. Outside jobs could work too though. Lifeguard, EMT, traffic cop, niche pick, but hey, land surveyor? Seeing that's what I am, seeing that job represented as a support class at a cool new RPG would be like fan service specifically for me, and there were a lot of cool ways you could integrate it. So, Infinite Wealth finally rolls around, and I looked down at my keychain and noticed my little monkey's paw had one more finger curled than I remembered. Because we got support characters, you just can't control them. And only one of them fits the idea I would have wanted to see implemented, and that one is the twist villain who's faking a disability and then gets punished for it by being given the disability, except not really, I guess. Well, hey, we could still get some cool new support-focused jobs, right? Infinite Wealth does seem to put more emphasis on specialized jobs, if these little bars are anything to judge by, so who knows? What do we have? Samurai, cowboy, surfer dude, racism but objectified. Excellent. Needless to say, these aren't exactly jobs, which means Infinite Wealth has chosen to abandon the idea of these things making sense in-universe and is just going for wacky stuff that is epic and funny. And maybe Yakuza 9 though, right? But yeah, I really like how Yakuza 7 handled this part of its gameplay, and I really wish the skill inheritance system in actual combat were better so I could feel more encouraged to experiment with these 7 exclusive jobs. But as it stands, Infinite Wealth is such an extreme upgrade in the moment-to-moment gameplay that I cannot be bothered playing 7 over it. So every time I play, Ichiban will be a hero, Adachi will be an enforcer, Psycho will be an idol, and Nanba will get the fuck out of my party as soon as I unlock Eri. And speaking of Eri, let's get to what some people might heavily disagree with being in this video. I really wish Infinite Wealth had struck out in more bold directions for its side content. At the end of the day, most of it is just lesser versions of different games. Hot take here. This is Yakuza. I didn't buy this game to play Pokemon or Animal Crossing, and the idea of Ichiban doing those things is only marginally less cringeworthy than your average dorkly video. And I don't say that word lightly. I hate the word cringe and the stigma things labeled as cringe have attached to them. S&T Forces has infinitely more merit than any Yakuza game released after Lost Judgment just because it actually has time and heart put into it. Sonic X Season 4 may have been created by some lazy weirdo dipshit, but goddammit, at least it was consistently funny. Not on purpose, mind, but I think I could count on 2 hands the number of times I actually laughed audibly during Infinite Wealth, and most of those would have also been at the game's expense. All of that is to say that I never want to see Yakuza do this sort of side content ever again. And if Yakuza 9 side modes are just shitty versions of Helldivers and Among Us, then I don't think I'll buy that game. In stark contrast, Yakuza 7 actually makes a distinct and dedicated effort to make its side content line up with the game thematically and functionally without just making it a worse version of a different game. Now, don't get it twisted. I don't like business management. It's extremely hostile to new players with a really lacking initial tutorial, then giant barrages of text boxes when you opt into actually doing it, and then it never reminds you of any of that afterwards. But what it lacks in functionality, it makes up for in having Nick Ogata, the best character in the game. Oh, and again, it links up with the actual story really well, having to work hard as fuck to scrape out of the bottom rungs of the business world, only to realize things get much easier once you have enough money that you don't need to worry about bankruptcy around the corner. It reflects the struggle of poverty and the relative privilege of the simple act of not being poor. I do think it's a little cheap that you just get given an angel investor to make the journey way easier than it otherwise would have been, but hey, the game's already not fun. I don't want it to be longer. It's also a positive and a negative that you basically have to finish this minigame to beat the game. You remember that 3 million yen roadblock in chapter Fuck Off? Yeah, good luck getting past that without a payout from a max level Ichiban holdings. Again, I like incentivizing the minigame, and I really like that it isn't technically mandatory, because hypothetically, if you really hated it, you could find other ways of making that cash. It's just, really heavily encouraged maybe a little bit too much. Infinite Wealth doesn't really have a moment like that, but I think the fact that the Dondoko Island Force tutorial is not only as long as it is, but also entirely unrelated to the actual plot of the game, still makes it worse than Ichiban Holdings. It's not like the game itself is any more fun, neither is the fake Pokemon thing, so... that's your transition for this part. I am very curious to hear from other people about this topic specifically, because we all remember how the initial reception to Yakuza 7's mostly electric dubstep-inspired soundtrack was. And if it wasn't dubstep, then I'm sorry for that. I'd like to avoid any more potential Muay Thai incidents in the future. Regardless, it's a super dated style of music that was well and truly out of the mainstream by 2019, and it makes up most of that game's soundtrack. And I used to hate it, but for some reason, whether it be Stockholm Syndrome, my own changing taste in music, or just more time put between me and the first time I played the game, I've made a nearly complete 180 on this soundtrack. It's not one of my favorites in the series, necessarily, but I love it nonetheless, and it's a lot better than Infinite Wealth's soundtrack, at least in my book. Conveniently enough, the games have actually got very similarly structured soundtracks. The games from either 5 or 6 onward have mostly shared the same formatting, so I'm not very surprised by that, but it does make it all the easier to compare the soundtracks to each other. And for 7 to Infinite Wealth specifically, the similarities run especially deep, which makes the downgrades in Infinite Wealth all the more palpable. So, let's go track by track for a moment, starting off with the first battle themes we hear in each game, dedicated to hubs that Ichiban will very rarely find himself fighting in. I told you the similarities run deep. Ascension Point is 7's battle theme for Kamurocho, and immediately it tells you a lot about Ichiban as a character and the style of music the game will be going for. Lots of electronic stuff, lots of very heavy beats and rhythms that keep the tempo at a cool, slow pace, despite the frantic staccato notes that fill up nearly every song. What fascinates me the most is how much of this song is constantly switching between sounds during its runtime, and just how many ad-lib types of moments there are. Sounds will randomly pop up during the verse segments and only come back when that exact moment comes back in the song. They're not really patterns, they're, again, ad-libs. This eclectic mash of beeps and boops with the occasional oddity thrown in on top perfectly captures the feeling of playing as Ichiban in combat. His unique style of fighting, both in his insistence on being turn-based and his reliance on more wrestling moves than most other protagonists would use in their average street fight, works really well with this jarring, loud style of music that forces you to engage with it on its own terms. There's still guitars in the mix, sure, but it's not going to spend too long sounding like the music you're used to, because it's not that, and it doesn't want to be that. I think that sentiment can be applied to Yakuza 7 as a whole, and it's one of the biggest things about the game that I respect, that powerful attitude and that refusal to bow down to expectations. Imagine my shock when Infinite Wealth opened on a song that does and says the exact opposite. Ichiban's Ijincho battle theme in this game is Navish, I think. Canavish. Peter Canavish, perhaps. And once again, we won't be hearing it very much for the rest of the game. But where Ascension Point struck out in a bold new direction and didn't compromise its vision for the sake of the player, this song is constantly bending the knee. It starts out continuing in this new, more electronic-focused direction with some jazzy flair thrown in on top, but then 30 seconds in, it's right into a guitar solo that diverts the entire song to give us something that doesn't hold a candle to nearly any other guitar-focused battle theme in the series. Then one more trip around the very short electronic bit, and another diversion into a keyboard solo that just sounds like a worse version of In the Groove. And yeah, none of these things make it a bad song. The melody is still fun, and the pieces add up into a somewhat cohesive whole, but that's not my point. The point is that this doesn't sound like an Ichiban Saga song. It sounds like an Ichiban Saga song got hijacked by a song from one of the older games. Imagine that. Now let's move on to one of my personal favorite tracks from Yakuza 7, Yokohama Crack House. I've heard some flack being thrown at this one, and I honestly don't understand that at all. Even when I hated this OST, this song was always the exception. The powerful and constant bouncy percussion, that groovy brass melody, the absolutely bonkers second half, I can't name you a bad part of this song. And what I'll draw your attention to for this little discussion is the ever-present guitar. Unlike Navish, and much like Ascension Point, the guitar on this song doesn't draw undue attention to itself. It complements the electronic elements from the background, and when it does move into the forefront in the second half, it never gets any more loud or garish than the aforementioned ad-lib samples. This is easily one of the best street battle themes in the series, hands down. Waikiki Downbeat, by contrast, is the worst street battle theme in the series, bar none. At least Push Me Deep Underwater was built off of a really good theme. At least Hailstorm and whatever the Majima Saga's theme are just boring. This song is so obviously just trying to do what Yokohama Crack House did, not in sound and structure alone, but even in name, it just sounds like a cheap knockoff. The electronic sound here is so much more abrasive than it has any right to be, and in a harder song that comes later in the game that I don't have to listen to more than once, maybe it would have added to the atmosphere. But this is a song you're going to hear constantly as soon as you get to Hawaii. Where Yokohama Crack House is a really strong opening that flows right into the main melody of the song, Waikiki Downbeat's opening 10 or so seconds are some of the most grating audio I've ever heard come out of this series. Even when the other instruments come in later on, they neither match nor overpower the disgusting wub-wub nonsense that the song insists on allowing to last its entire runtime. And yeah, it technically does let Ichiban's newer, more electronic and dubstep-focused music take the forefront of the whole song, but it does that in such an infuriating way that I can't in good faith give it props for that. I can't stand the idea of having to listen to this any longer in editing, so let's move on now to the significant generic encounter themes. Weep. That was good timing. Asphodelos and Daymare are so similar to each other that I won't go too into the nitty-gritty on either of their specifics, but once again, the former is able to stick by this principle of letting Ichiban's musical stylings take center stage and speak for themselves without compromising in quality. It's a good spike in energy compared to both Ascension Point and Yokohama Crack House, so wherever you do end up hearing it, it sounds distinctly like this fight is way more important than whatever else you've been encountering on your way there. Daymare is another victim of the guitar taking way too much importance in the song's melody and structure, but honestly, the end result is good enough to where I don't really mind it as much. And the comparatively dark mood it's got compared to most of the other songs you'll be hearing on a regular basis is a welcome change of pace. It's another good break from the usual battle themes you'll be hearing during the game, although that is in part due to Waikiki Downbeat and Stigma just not being good. On a similar note, Pellagra and Sanctions are each game's generic boss theme. Pellagra is one of the songs I used to be particularly negative about, but Sanctions showed me what a bad version of that song would really sound like. Okay, no, bad is too harsh, but let's keep informed here. Pellagra is another great example of using the ad-lib samples to full effect, and the main melody, while being a bit repetitive and beat-boopy for my liking, never sticks around for too long to get boring, and the drop in the second half really sells the song for me. I love how dramatic it gets without sounding overblown or obnoxious. It's a good boss theme. If I had to rank it, I'd say it's around more huge and extermination levels of quality, but not quite in the upper echelon. Of all the songs I've talked about here, Sanctions might be the most obvious with how it apes on its analog in Yakuza 7, but it still manages to sound like its own thing for the most part. Very bouncy and fun rhythm, and the bit where it slows down about a minute in keeps the mood tense without sacrificing the song's momentum. But then the part after that completely loses me. The melody shifts to this really boring 4-note pattern. It entirely kills the mood just by sounding so basic. And it was right here in my listening of the Infinite Wealth soundtrack that I finally realized something. Every song sounds comparatively boring to me, and it's for one specific reason. Did you catch it yourself? It makes next to no use of those ad-lib samples I've been praising in every single part of Yakuza 7's soundtrack so far. The guitar taking up so much presence in a lot of Infinite Wealth soundtrack is one thing, but it's a whole other thing to take what, in my opinion, is the best and most character-appropriate part of Yakuza 7's soundtrack and just throw it out the window. It makes it feel like less of an inspired decision for the brand new Ichiban saga, and more like a game-specific gimmick that was only chosen to do something different for that one game. And this never changes, to my memory. I don't want to go through every single Infinite Wealth song, but at least for a majority of them, they stick to comparatively bland compositions that don't match Ichiban's wacky and over-the-top energy that he was meant to bring to the series. Hell, most of the songs I like off the soundtrack are the ones that sound closest to matching 7's frantic and chaotic energy. Stuff like Body Bag and Slugfest feel so close to getting it right, but they never quite hit the same high for me. Also, the second biggest problem of the Infinite Wealth soundtrack, and I hope that someone else noticed this, is the fact that, I swear to God, half of these songs start out exactly the same.
Yakuza.
In my listening through the soundtrack, I think it was on a college trip. I was going back to Mississippi for my school there. Half of the songs start out like that, and I hope that I'm not ruining this for anybody if you haven't noticed it, but it ruined the soundtrack for me. And talking of Infinite Wealth losing the magic that made 7 work so well, it's about time we get to the part of the video that I care the most about making known. Being the first mainline entry to get one after the first game, since Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise and Judgment are spin-offs, it makes sense that they would put more time, money, and effort into getting this one right. And to me, it results in the best English dub the series has gotten so far. I can't name a performance I don't like just from memory. All of the main characters are fantastic, and even the legacy characters all get voices that I think suit them really well. So, if it pleases the court, just let me gush about this for a bit. I've been sitting on this rant for a while. My favorite performances in the game are Kiryu, obviously, Xiao, Ishioda, and Masumi Arakawa. The fact that Robbie Daymond and Rino Romano actually put in the effort to do some really captivating and silly voices for their characters was super appreciated. It helped their characters make much better use of their scene chewing opportunities.
Was I not clear?
I don't like sermons.
Well, that's not what I'm calling it. Consider it a formal complaint. And a real leader ought to shut up and listen when there's a complaint.
Who should I, huh? Ichiban Kasuga, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all ears. But first, I want you to answer a question.
Shoot.
Why would Mabuchi try to start a war in Ijincho in the first place? How in the goddamn world does that benefit him?
How the fuck should I know?
What a surprise. And in regards to that soap landowner, do you know for sure that Mabuchi killed him?
Zhao was already good in Japanese, but Ishioda especially goes from a forgettable villain by my standards to a standout inclusion whenever he's on screen.
My condolences to the recently squished. It's kind of a damn shame to have to flatten that woman, though. She was just my type.
Kiryu and Arakawa bring the same appeal for me, being actually older men playing older characters. Daryl Coolio sounds much more comfortable in the role here, and the fact that he's allowed to not only speak at a normal pitch, but also raise his voice more than once, helps him so much. His best moment in Yakuza 1 is everything between the Omi henchman and Jingu fight in the finale. His scream when Date's helicopter gets shot down is such a sudden rush of actual emotion from him. It nearly gave me chills the first time I saw it.
Solicitation of murder. You're finished, Jingu.
You have no evidence! You're bluffing!
No! Date-san, we're hit. We're going down. Shit. Date!
That tone of voice is how Kiryu sounds in my head, and his performance in 7 sounds like a realistically aged version of that voice, not some lame put-on. Cough, cough.
What's his next move?
I was going to tell you that, but not anymore.
What? Don't fuck around, man. Just tell me.
I can't say I really feel like it, after what I just saw from you.
Well, I can't say I'm feeling your tone right now, man. Who fucking died and made you king?
My tone? You're the one who was beating up a guy who couldn't even fight back anymore. It shouldn't take a king to tell you that was uncalled for.
What the hell is this next move the young master's gonna make? Spit it out!
You're too blind with rage right now to understand it anyway. But I'll give you a chance. Come to Komijul after the sun sets. I'll be waiting.
All of that said, George Takei as Arakawa is inarguably the best performance in the game. Not only is he an actual accomplished stage and screen actor, as I understand it, but the fact that he is as old as his character is means that he's able to embody that ancient, world-weary tone without having to try.
On New Year's.
That reminds me. You find yourself a girl yet?
No, sir. I'm like a reverse chick magnet.
Don't be so quick to throw in the towel.
Easy for you to say. You probably had girls all over you at my age.
What? I won't abide such slander.
Oh,
You use the past tense. Going silver has only made me a bigger hit with the ladies. Of course, of all the women over the years, there was only one. Just one I might have started a family with.
Yeah?
He's got such a warm, loving voice whenever he's with Ichiban. You can tell how much he cares about him just from comparing how he sounds between his scenes with and without Ichi. That moment on the dock right before he dies, when he tells Ichiban about his dream and apologizes for being such a terrible father figure, brings me to tears just thinking about it.
The truth is, I've never helped you at all. Not even once. You should hate me for all the things I've done. Why don't you?
Fine. If you really want to beat yourself up about it, then please let me back in the family with you.
Hey, Ichi. You were born at a soapland called Shangri-La, weren't you?
Yeah. So I've been told.
It's a hell of a story. One that's never sat well with me.
Huh?
I dream about it, you know.
You dream about it?
Yeah. I dream that it's 40 years ago, on that cold New Year's Eve night. Akane is there, and she's about to give birth to her baby. She gives birth in Shangri-La. In the dream, it's Masato who ends up being born in that soapland.
No, come on. This is embarrassing.
Nothing to be embarrassed about. You've got a good heart and you're doing the best you can. It doesn't matter where you were born.
If I had to name an underrated performance and one that got completely fucked up in Infinite Wealth, it's probably Sawashiro. Brian Bloom is normally on the more generic side of things. He's sort of just gruff criminal guy in my head. But when he's going hard in this game, he's giving it his all. That scene where he snaps on the Omi's top dogs shows how capable he is of sounding threatening without actually needing to raise his voice too much. He sounds like the kind of person that people get scared of when they notice he hasn't said anything in a while, which is pretty much perfect for Sawashiro in Yakuza 7.
What are you doing? You know, guys like you are all bark and no balls when it's wartime. That's the kind of Yakuza I can't fucking stand. Only a few years ago, you were sucking up to the Tojo clan. Then Arakawa changed his colors, and there you were at his feet. Now he's dead, and you think you can pull the senpai card on me? Talk is cheap. The Yakuza way to lead is with bloodshed. The weak always fall in line behind the strong. Help me! Time to accept it. Among the men in this room, you represent the weak, and that goes for all of you! I fully intend to start a new chapter for the Yakuza as the Tokyo Omi Alliance. I hope we can count on your support, Senpai.
Even for the performances I wouldn't call my favorites, there's a lot I appreciate about them. The whole party, except for Nanba, has wonderful voices, and the only reason Nanba sucks is because Greg Chun was given the worst possible hand to work with. Their English voices have so much personality to them. They all sound like more than generic anime protagonists, at least to my untrained ear.
This is really nice to see.
What is?
How you all seem thick as thieves already.
Really? It's not like we've known each other that long.
This is just how guys are, Sachan. Now, let's go home. Be careful on your way back.
She'll be fine. If someone attacks her, he'll end up in worse shape than she will.
That's right. I pity the man who messes with me.
Me too. Good night.
Will Yun Lee as Masato Arakawa leaves a bit to be desired, but I still enjoy his performance. He sounds great in the first chapter, and even in his interview scenes, I like how he changes up his tone and cadence.
I couldn't have achieved the amazing results of the 3K plan without the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. That was how cooperation between law enforcement and local government should look. It's a specialized performance enhancer. It stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, so even someone with my condition will be able to stand and walk just like anybody else. The effect...
It's just the more emotional stuff towards the end that I think he flounders a bit with. The script isn't particularly good, which doesn't help him, but I think his range of inflections is just also a bit too limited to really shine in this role specifically.
Do you know what she said to me? You won't believe it. Oh my, you're so sophisticated and intelligent for a man your age. Crazy, right? Fucking incredible. That damn woman. She was so scared of me. And she calls me a gentleman? What kind of bullshit is that? I swear you couldn't make this shit up. Hilarious, don't you think?
It's okay.
In the end, that's all it amounted to. The power I changed my name for, changed my body for. The power I chased with such blind passion, I killed for it.
The three Jimas all got the exact right voices for them. Matthew Mercer has shown that even when he's in a really boring game with a really boring version of Majima, he's still capable of bringing his all to the performance. And at least in 7, he gets to bring some energy that was sorely lacking in Pirate Yakuza.
Alliance HQ.
So you want to keep asking questions? Well then good luck beating the answers out of us.
Ron Juan as Saejima mostly just works because his voice is deep enough for it, and hey, we got to see both Scorpion and Liu Kang in the same game with Infinite Wealth, even if they never got to interact. My personal favorite of the three, obviously, is Roger Craig Smith as Daigo. Not because he gives the best performance, but because I've mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog at least one time on the channel before now.
I'm Daigo Dojima, 6th chairman of the Tojo clan.
Tojo clan? The fuck's he doing here?
As the Omi Alliance does, so shall we. The Tojo clan is also officially dissolved. Watase-san and I will serve as each other's witnesses as we each end our factions together.
Getting to hear him at all in this game was a real treat, even if it wasn't for long, and I really wish we could have gotten to hear more of him in the later games. I say that because, of course, by the time Infinite Wealth rolled around, RGG had made it abundantly clear to us that they weren't even going to try with the dubs anymore.
What do you know? What could you possibly know about what we've been through? You have any idea what it's like?
No, I can't say I do. And I wouldn't want to.
Gaiden was the real herald of that message, and I could say plenty about how boring and terrible nearly every performance in that game's English dub is, but instead, I'll skip to Infinite Wealth. I really don't have much to say on an individual level here. The biggest problem is just that every single returning actor sounds like they've had the life sucked out of them, and the new ones don't fare much better.
Of you. Come on, you forget what we said downstairs? You and a lone wolf routine, I swear.
Yeah, seriously. Now let's finish this together, huh?
Yeah. Absolutely.
There were about 3 performances in this game that I ended up liking. First up was Adachi. He sounds the least dead among the returning party, and I just really like his voice. So I'm very glad that they weren't able to ruin it to the extent of everybody else.
Yep. Then from here, I'll summarize their security flaws in a report and submit it to their managers. And that should do it for work they hired us for, but for my money, there's a real business opportunity here.
Meaning?
Meaning now, I can offer them consulting. Get a contract going, and I can advise them on where to place cameras or even introduce them to reputable security companies.
Second is Ebina. Even if I don't like the character at all, I just appreciate the chance to hear Daniel Day Kim in a game. Being a big Saints Row fan, Johnny Gat was one of the standout performances in the first and second games, even among the big celebrity appearances they got for a lot of those roles, and Kim is still on point here.
Honestly, I'm ashamed. Only Yakuza filth would resort to a cheap tactic like this. Still, you want to let your hate run wild, well, a knife in the back's just the thing. Minimal effort, maximum suffering. The future of the Yakuza? That was a pipe dream from the start. When the trash is full, the only thing left to do is take it out.
The third performance I want to mention is Bill Farmer as Date. Once again, getting an age-appropriate actor made this performance all the better. He was already wonderful seeing him for a bit in Yakuza 7, so not only having him in this game, but having him despite Cruelio's absence, makes me value him all the more. He's got such a perfect voice for Date. He's one of the only consistently good performances in the original game, too. Like, yeah, I get it, haha, goofy voice actor in a Yakuza game, but if you have the patience to actually sit and listen to his performance, he brings a down-to-earth, calming charm that Kiryu really needs in this game. And the first one. The only thing that could have improved this was if we actually got to hear the improved performances from both Date and Kiryu's English voices. And on that note, I guess I'd better address the elephant in the room.
Yep, now that we have that settled, I only have to come up with a plan. Some way the Daidoji faction will write off as a coincidence, just in case. Like with Taichi, we need the perfect setting. Give me a bit of time.
Whatever you say. I'll go along with this because I trust you. Thanks, Date-san.
Stop it. This is something I want to do. There's no need for one word of appreciation.
Yang Ye as Kiryu is something that hurts me more than I think it hurts most other fans of this series. Seeing how Yakuza 1 is one of my favorite entries, I wanted so badly for Daryl Cruelio to get the chance for redemption with the American audience. He got his moment in 7, but hearing about Gaiden coming out, and despite my not wanting any more Kiryu in this series anyway, giving me the promise of more than a moment, I got excited. But then we learned it wouldn't be Cruelio's voice coming out of his mouth. I could have handled that, as long as it was still someone good. But it wasn't.
Now, if you want to die, step up!
Yang Ye isn't right for this role. He's not right for any role that I've heard him in. Even in the Kaito files, his performance as Shirakawa makes it painfully obvious that Yang is only capable of doing one voice for every single dramatic situation. He goes into a whisper. He gets really breathy. And he puts way too much emphasis on the end of all of his sentences.
As you may be aware, Kaito-san, I too have feelings for Mikiko-san. And if she never returns them, then I fully accept that. That said, I wouldn't hesitate to give up everything for her, my own life included.
And that was in a role where he got to use his normal speaking voice. Hearing him constantly putting on this fake, low, tough guy voice for Kiryu kills me. The one thing Kiryu has never had to do was try to be cool. And all that Yang does in this game is try to be cool.
You can always turn a new leaf, but you can't turn back the clock. All you get is the precious time you're given. That's why you've got to live every last moment to the fullest. I figured I knew that well enough already. But to my surprise, I still had a lot left to learn.
Kiryu-san? Did something happen?
Yeah. If anyone deserves to know, it's the guys who have my back. Thing is, I've got cancer.
Now, he's getting better with time, and I'm sure he'll get to a point where he's listenable. He's not there yet, but I don't want listenable. I want a grown adult of 60 years old to play this grown adult who's about 60 years old. Is that so much to ask? Would it cost that much more to hire a man with the same talent level, but who's at least the right age for the role? I mean, the answer is yes, apparently. And that's the kicker. Infinite Wealth's dub absolutely reeks of budget cuts. I don't blame the actors for sounding like they do. I blame their lack of decent direction that becomes painful in certain scenes.
I want you to have a chance to atone. If you can see that through, well, let's head back to Hawaii, all right? Why are you still acting like we're friends?
I blame the obvious lack of time that resulted in them using bad takes for certain lines. I blame RGG, and I blame Sega for deciding that the English dub for their next mainline game wasn't worth putting in enough time and effort to make it sound as good as the recent ones. Even minor characters in Yakuza 7 got to make the most of their screen time. I mentioned it before, but the small roles like Nick Ogata are absolute blessings to have on screen because, especially with him, he's actually putting some effort and sass into his lines. He's playing an actual character.
You're trending, sir. The buzz on social media is that Ryo Aoki isn't even your real name. Is that true? They're saying your real name is Masato Arakawa. In Yokohama the other day, a gang leader named Masumi Arakawa was killed. Could it be that he was your father?
Infinite Wealth, despite getting the literal, actual Akiyama on screen, somehow didn't take 5 seconds to realize that reusing Nick Ogata's English voice for him with a little bit of a different direction would have been a way better idea than making this 50-plus chronic smoker sound like a shonen MC who's less than drinking age.
Don't be sad. Remember what I said? You deal with business the way you do with fish and women. Catch, then release. Take pride in the catch, but then set them free. Any sporting fisherman can tell you that. Really? You want me back at the office? I hope you're joking. I pay you generously to deal with this nonsense. The whole idea behind bringing you on was so that I could enjoy my nights off. Ciao!
Oh, excuse me, I was incorrect. Making this 50-plus chronic smoker sound like the main villain from the Kaito Files.
Not every day someone holds their own against white masks, let alone this many. And after seeing you fight, there's no mistaking it. Do me a favor and be up front, eh? Kiryu-san?
Instead, they sate themselves on worldly affairs and superficial relationships. They're worthless.
So, you cut down your old pals and burned her family alive. They meant nothing to you.
Precisely. You catch on quick. I like your potential.
Because it's just him. Because all they can do is reuse all their random actors who have names that I don't recognize. There's no love in this dub. It's only here because they were obligated to have it here. And I'm not convinced after Pirate Yakuza and Yakuza 0 Director's Cut that that's ever going to change. All told, I still don't like Yakuza 7 very much. I don't enjoy the gameplay, I don't like the story, and I don't like a lot of the ripple effects that we can still feel emanating from it all these years later, be it in the reused sub-stories and over-reliance on references to more popular franchises for the sake of jokes and actual plot. More than that, but even with all those things considered, I'd still take it over what we have now. Infinite Wealth makes it so much easier to see where this series could have gone after 7, and in literally every single aspect except for gameplay, I'd say the direction we're in now is the wrong one. Yeah, but hey, RGG clearly loves looking back on where it used to be and wishing it was still there. I think we're allowed to do the same every once in a while. That's why I still go back to 7 every now and again. That's why I still go back to 5, too. I may not like those games and some of the other ones, but from where I'm standing now, it's nice to appreciate the things we used to take for granted. And hey, we'll always have those games to go back to. I honestly recommend everyone go back to an earlier entry you may not have liked the most, not because old is automatically good, but because it's a fun thought exercise to find the good in the bad. And truth be told, sometimes it's best to go on a little hunt for that good stuff instead of wallowing in the bad stuff. I've been doing a lot of the latter lately, and believe me, this has been a fun break from that. I'm looking forward to doing this a little bit more in the future. I hope y'all enjoyed this little trip back to the past with me. Special thanks to the insane gamers Just B, Hashbear, and Indolent Lard. You make this possible. And to everyone watching, I hope you have a good day. Take care of yourself.